We really worked, and we got up in front of the room. We talked to Richard, and he's a very hands-on guy, very funny. We laughed all weekend, and it really was a great event. So the outline for today is we're going to go for about 20 minutes, and we're going to talk about the recap. We're going to talk about the goals and the vision as Richard outlines, and then I'm going to pause at the 20-minute mark for Q&A. And then after about 10 minutes, we're going to go on to the second part of today's Zoom call, which is going to highlight your story, the one invite per day and why that's so important, and then the secret formula. And that's very important. And then we'll end it with Q&A. So let's get started. So it wouldn't be a Shackley event without seeing a lot of friendly faces and having a lot of fun. And you know, the one great thing about Shackley, as we all know, when we get together at these events, these meetings, we see so many of our good friends, and we laugh a lot, and we have a great time. And this weekend was no different. You can see with Pam and Alan there, with Richard, they met the guru and got their books signed, and of course Dee Dee Shaw was there. She wouldn't miss this for anything. And Carolyn Whiteman over here on the right was a big part of this meeting and was a real driving force behind that. And Carolyn and I have struck up a friendship. I think so highly of Carolyn. I think she's so just incredibly impactful with some of her ideas and her speaking. And I first met her and Roland at the Presidential Master Builder event in Portsmouth this past spring, when Roland and Carolyn and Charlene and the Medorans and several other leaders came up to our area, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and put on a meeting. And what struck me about that meeting is Roland stood up and said, something big is happening. And I pondered that for a while, and I thought, well, I'm not going to raise my hand and ask. I'm just going to try to figure this out for myself. And I think now, about 9 months later, I can kind of sense what Roland was alluding to, because when Richard gets up and talks about geometric progression and compounding growth, it's really it's a very impactful thing. And I think he's teaching us some things that, you know, are things that we already know. A lot of people are already doing this, but to get back in motion, the wheels in motion, was really, I think, very helpful. And you know, when we started this 90-day run to momentum, the one thing that was interesting to me as a person that's just coming back to Shackley from being away for several years was his impression of Shackley. So Richard, as a network marketing guru, but an outsider, I was curious to hear what he thought about Shackley. And he thinks our products are second to none. He thinks we have hands down the best product line, which most of us would agree with. He thinks Dr. Shackley's heritage and philosophy is the best in network marketing. A chiropractor, a scientist, a naturopath, a holistic healer, a professor, you know, he is the real deal. Dr. Shackley had an incredible philosophy that we all believe in. You know, we all think so highly of that philosophy, but the future is now. And, you know, what does he think of the new modern Shackley? And he's even more bullish, as you find out, about the modern day Shackley as he was the past. You know, he thinks the two bookends of Dr. Shackley and Roger Barnett are pretty incredible. And it's a very incredible story, and a very profound story that we can tell people that are prospects, that are looking at possibly building a business. And he thinks Roger is, you know, really the most polished guy network marketing has ever seen, with his academic pedigree from Yale and Harvard, and you know, his influence in society. You know, we know some of it, but you know, the more you hear about Roger, he's a pretty interesting guy. And as you can see in the bottom right, he's not so high on himself that he won't, you know, rub elbows with us. I mean, he came to our meeting in Vegas. He just joined our cocktail party and volunteered to say a few words. And you know, Phyllis and Gary and I were kind of blown away by this, because he just volunteered to do it. And I thought that was really pretty incredible of him to just join us, you know, on a moment's notice, when we really didn't even invite him. So, but he knew what was going on, because that's the kind of guy Roger is. He knows what's going on. He pays attention. And so, some of these are fun shots. You guys probably enjoy some of these old pictures of my mom and dad, Les and Allie, with Dr. Shackley. And I even had the chance to meet him at one of the meetings. And so these are fun pictures I found when I was visiting my parents' home that they've lived in forever. And my mom took pictures and kept shoe boxes filled with pictures. And so as I was going through some of these old pictures, I found, great pictures of a lot of you folks that, my dad has such fond memories of. And, speaking of my dad, I had the chance to meet with my dad several times over the course of the past year. And on November 1st, we had a really fun transaction that took place. And this is a picture in my dad's lawyer's office where we signed the papers. And, when we talk about when we signed the papers to move the business to the next generation, when we talk about the balance between product and opportunity, Richard has an interesting take. He thinks if you look at the balance, most network marketing companies have a pretty equal balance between product and opportunity. Well, in Shackley, we're way out of balance. We love the products and we know everything about the products. I mean, most people can, just tell you what every vitamin in our portfolio does for the body, which is really incredible. It is a great product line, but we probably have gotten away from selling the opportunity. And I think, according to Richard, not I think, Richard feels like we are way out of balance. And his call to action is to get us more in balance so that we feel really comfortable about talking about the opportunity. Because when we talk about the opportunity and when we build a business, it's an asset that has real value and it's substantial value. And this picture over on the right depicts it. My dad's business had a pretty incredible value to it. And Richard talks about the rule of 200 and what these businesses in network marketing are worth. And if you just take your monthly volume, your monthly income check from Shackley, your bonus check, multiply it by 200, that's the value of an asset, according to Richard. If you were to invest in real estate or stocks and get, a 5 to 10% return on your investment, that's what your network marketing business is worth. And so I told you that it was a workshop. This was not a social meeting. This was not a seminar where you sit back on your hands and just listen and take notes. He asked us to create our vision. And he also talked about the difference between goals and visions. And, goals are super important, but they're distinctly different than vision. And in goal setting, it's very important based on research. We know that if you write down your goals, you're 10 to 100 times more likely to achieve that goal than if you don't write it down. If you don't write it down, it's just a hope. It's really not a goal. It's just a hope. And if you write down your goals, and even more importantly, if they're SMART goals, they're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relevant, and they're time-based. When I was in medical sales, I used to have my sales reps send me their SMART goals every quarter, every year. We'd go over the business plan, and we would sit down and we would talk about them and make sure that, they had all the key parts to the goal that were, measurable and attainable, and what are the action steps to achieve them. And so that's really important. Richard is really big on vision, and he wrote a book called Mach 2. And if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And that book is fantastic. It really goes through and talks about the power of vision. And what struck me is that Richard's quote is, he says, your vision is 10 to 100 times more effective than goal setting. And we know if goal setting is important, imagine the power of a vision. And the key to vision casting, in Richard's opinion, it's not about, I will, or I will try, or I want to do this. A vision is I am. And just to give you an example, if you go to page 89 in that book, These are a few examples of what he means when he says I am. And these are my own. These are what I created underneath what his examples were. I am enthusiastic about my beliefs. I am passionate about success. I love helping others succeed. I believe in being honest and candid. I believe in exceeding expectations. And if you ever listen to Laura Evans, her vision is so powerful. I've only been here, for 9 months, 6 months active, and I've heard Laura give her vision, like, I don't know how many times. I think I know Laura's vision as well as she does because I've heard it so many times, but that's the power of vision. I am a presidential master coordinator. I have $40 million in revenue a year. Like I can almost recite her vision because I've heard it so many times. And that's the power of Richard's interpretation of a vision that will get over the obstacles, the hurdles. Amazon selling Shackley, it's so hard. We have all these excuses we bring up in our own mind, me included. But when you have a powerful vision, you just blow right over them like they're little minor speed bumps because, every business, every industry, my former industry in medical, there were hurdles and roadblocks all over the place. A big hospital in downtown Boston would put up roadblocks from the moment I walked in the door. Like there was they said, you have no chance here. And if everybody walked out the door and called their boss and said, we have no chance, they said, well, guess what? We don't need you anymore. But we had to find a way, just like we find a way in Shackley, to really achieve what we need to achieve, because of our vision. That's the power of getting through all those hurdles and roadblocks. And, that allowed me, like in my medical career, we took a small business in downtown Boston from $2 million and we grew it to $15 million in annual revenue. And we only achieved that success from the great team we had. It wasn't because of me. It was because we had great reps on our team and we had a great mindset that we would overcome obstacles because we would just find a way to succeed even in spite of them. And I really see, Shackley as having so many incredible benefits. And hearing an outsider's perspective like Richard kind of cements our belief in how good Shackley is and how strong it is. And so if we look at vision and who do you want to be, and then this book talks a lot about the attributes. I am confident, I am fun, I am a speaker, I'm an influencer, I'm curious. He's big on being curious because those are the kind of people that do well in network marketing. They're not just, focused on themselves. They're curious to help others. And so when I look at Val Setterholm and my mom, these were really inspirational people. Joyce Hoffman, Al Hagerman, Bob Hoker, the Burks, these people were so powerful and so filled with vision in Minneapolis when we grew up there. Like nothing would stop these people. They wouldn't allow any excuses. And, it was very inspirational to see those people and hear them. I used to go to the weekly meetings that Bob Hoker put on every Tuesday night at the Ambassador Hotel. I was probably, 7 or 8 years old. My parents couldn't leave me behind, so they dragged me with them. And it was really inspirational to hear these people. And I think what made them strong leaders was their vision. They had a strong vision and they believed in building the business through the opportunity. And what they were able to achieve was so impactful because they knew that the work was worth it. And Richard talks a lot about people that succeed in network marketing and those that don't. The ones that do succeed, they know that the work is worth it. They know their why is super strong. It might be to travel. It might be to rest or retire. It might be to contribute. It might be for adventure. I'm a big adventure seeker. I love to travel the world. In my former business, I traveled to Africa. I traveled to China. I traveled to Beirut, Lebanon. These were all meetings and, trips that I took because my customers were going. I paid for it on my own dime. Nobody paid for it. I just decided to go for it. Kind of like Chicago. When when they said that Chicago was a meeting that was being set up by Roland Osterhaus and Carolyn Whiteman and Charlene Fike, that caught my attention. And when those folks reached out to me and said, hey, Scott, you should do this, if people like that are getting behind something, I'm all in. And so this is a picture of the bonus cars in our driveway growing up. And, I think back, that was something that caught my dad's attention. That was something that like really mattered to him because, before Shackley, he was driving a beater. It was an awful car that would break down all the time. And so when he was at his first meeting and Bob Hoker said, how many people in this meeting today have Shackley bonus cars? Everybody raised their hand. My dad said, geez, if all these people can get bonus cars, so can I. So it's funny when I look back on it, the yellow car way on the right is the car I used to drive to high school every day. And my friends made fun of me because I had this big old Cadillac Sedan DeVille, but it was a former Shackley car that they passed on to me. And so at this point, we're almost 20 minutes into it. I wanted to pause so that we could have a chance for Q&A. And I also wanted a chance. I'm going to stop the share for a second. I'm going to unmute everybody. If somebody has background noise, all I ask is that you just mute, go to the bottom left corner and just mute your microphone so we don't hear background noise. But I'd love to hear from Pam Hoffman because I know, Pam and Alan and Andre and I, we had a really fun weekend. We laughed all weekend and we told stories and Richard, this guy's a character and we really had fun. And so I'm really curious to hear from Pam. I know Alan couldn't make it, but I'd like to hear from Pam first and Andre and just hear their takeaways from the weekend. Go ahead, Pam.
Thank you. And oh my gosh, I'm so impressed with this presentation. You have put everything together in such a beautiful way, Scott, and I'm so glad you're recording it because I want to get this to the rest of the people on my team. But yeah, I just a little background. I started doing the Richard Brooke stuff mid-October. I'd heard about him. I'd actually sent some books out before conference, not knowing what was going on. I just saw that people were using these books, and I sent them to some of my distributors. But I really got involved by paying for the whole workshop. I knew I only had a few months. And then I decided I was going to go to Chicago, and I thought, okay, I've got to learn all this before I go to Chicago. So I had an urgency. So I've been really infusing myself with Richard in the last, mid-October. And then I started my 90-day run the day before my birthday, end of October, and have been just in the midst of it. But I think, so there's so much I could share, but in narrowing it down, what I think what I want to share with you is, okay, so two most important things I've learned is really that the work is worth it because of the power of network marketing. And I know that sounds so like you've heard that before. I'd heard it a million times. I don't know why I didn't get it before, but something magical happened with Richard putting that in my head. So I get it. And I'm really studying the numbers. I'm learning how to present that, and I'm learning how to tell my story in a different way. And in fact, I'm just telling a whole new story. And I feel like in Shackley, we need to learn to tell a new story about what we have to offer in the business, basically. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is that I think there's two really important skill sets that make people successful. And as I look around at master coordinators, I see that they have these. And one is coaching. And I'm thinking about Roland Osterhaus, who I've worked with before, and other people. And another is recruiting. I think about Phyllis and Gary and how fabulous they are at that. And they don't know a stranger, and they have so many connections with people, and they're not afraid to talk to people. And so for me, I had to really analyze these two skill sets and give myself a grade on it, really. So as I'm doing this, I'm realizing I'm a B+ at coaching. I really kind of lean back on that. It comes naturally to me. I have a team. I've coached them, but I've kind of coached the same people over and over for a long, long time. I'm probably a D- or have been in art of recruiting new people. And I've been looking around for years, looking at different people. How do they do this? How they do this? They, do we need to go online? Is there some magic formula? Well, there's not. It's simply about learning to connect, talk to people, listen to needs, and there is a skill set for talking to strangers. And that's what I think I came away with, because that's a missing piece for me, is how do you really do that? And Richard lays that out step by step. And so I've learned the skill. So I had a big success coming home with the Uber driver who, and I won't go into all the details today because I know we got other things to talk about, but those would be the two things I've come away with. And I'm going to continue to work on those skill sets, because I do believe that's the secret, is learning how to recruit. And Richard talks a lot about how, in Shackley, we kind of think of that as maybe not a good thing, or he called it like it's a dirty word or something, recruiting. But recruiting is what Dr. Shackley did in order to start the business. So I want to learn how to do that and be a master at it. So that's what I took away.
Thanks, Pam. And I think you're way too hard on yourself, by the way. Not even close to a D-. Don't be so hard on yourself. You're much better than that. So Andre, I'm curious what your takeaway was.
Well, Pam, I'm signing up with both hands in your remarks and in your observation and thoughts about your experience. That's what you got out of that bootcamp. Maybe then I will, since you cover so much, I would like to share what we know very well, and we hear this over and over, but it became for me extremely clear, the concept of what we commonly refer as a vision, our vision. And he really brought it down to almost mechanically how it works in terms of the structure of our mind, and why the vision is so important, because vision is like a pattern internally with our emotional side of the mind and the cognitive side of mind. And then there are other aspects of mind that makes us aware of situations around us that lead us to fulfillment of that vision. So, well, all right, let me back up because I complicated more than I explained. So he said something that really made it so much, it was very impactful on me. He said that, we all have a vision. Either we are aware of it or not. All right, because we are run by those patterns. We automatically respond to everything that our five senses provide us on a daily basis. We have a pattern. Somebody says, I love you. We have a response based upon our past. And somebody says, you're a bad person. I have a specific response, and so on and so on and so on. So anyway, he said, if you want to see your true vision of your life right now, where you are, just look around. What have you accomplished? What happened in your life in the last 4 months? Because what happened around us on a daily basis is manifestation of our vision of ourselves, of our life, of the qualities that we're standing for, and so forth. Even if we are not aware, because that's automatic. That's how kind of it gets into and kind of a runs our life in a sense that bring manifestation. So that was really kind of a big take on my part from his workshop. And then, of course, why we want to spend some time and really define qualities of the person I want to be, what I want to accomplish, what kind of qualities of me as a human being in a relationship with other people, with those who are my love, my family, my wife, and so on and on. And then expanding on what I would love to have in my life in terms of providing myself and those around me. And that makes a sense why it is important to spend the time and work on that vision by kind of a repetitious fashion, which means I'm revisiting my vision, I'm refining it, and that becomes, after a while, a kind of a new pattern, at least initiates lots of processes in my mind because of it. And then he said something very profound that we know very well, because I went through Lou Tai's training. I don't know if How many of you went through it? I know, Pam, you went through that thing. And Lutheis was talking, it was years ago, and right now when I go on a Google and science just speaks of it really loudly, about the reticular activating system, in a short, RAS. And this is a part of the brain that has the purpose of filtering incredible amount of data coming through our five senses every day, and makes us aware only of the things that are important for us and we are responsible for it. Otherwise, it bounces back, we are not aware of it. Our brain is actually, from the science point of view, capable of, when we're looking on a tree, to become aware of every tree, leaf on a tree, become aware of the movement. Except that we would probably burn and explode from the processing power of our brain. So there was kind of a safety system set up that we become only aware of the things that are relating to what we're pursuing in life, what is important, and most importantly, what we are responsible for it. So now, bringing back the vision, when we envision that ourselves, that we are successful, that we are this kind of a person, that we attentive in a conversation, that we are present in conversation, we're truly curious about people, that things, and then when we add on the top of a goal, let's say what we want to accomplish in our Shakti business, we automatically, that reticular activating system makes us aware of opportunities left and right to connect, to connect with this person, that person. It brings us to our awareness all the facts, occurrences in a daily life that are related to our vision, what we want to accomplish. Otherwise, it makes us unaware, and we're passing by and we don't see opportunities and we don't act on them and so forth. So that may be a little bit complicated attempt to explain something simple, but unfortunately, it took me quite a while, quite many years to figure it out. But now I'm very clear on that. And it was a big take on my part, besides everything else that you, Pam, already mentioned, and same with you, Scott. So this is my story. I'm sticking with it.
Well, hey, whenever you bring up reticulating activator system, that's good stuff. You know, it's interesting, though, because we do all have baggage in our background that makes us look at certain things, Andre, to your point about, you know, maybe we don't look at everybody as an opportunity to engage with, or maybe there's something deep down in us that we use as an excuse. Oh, I shouldn't go talk to that person. Oh, they're probably not interested. I don't want to bug them. And, you know, Richard is very creative at how he gets to the core of somebody. He digs down deep. And we saw several role plays in front of the room over the weekend, people that had a lot of baggage. And Richard would say, well, what's your story? Like, let's get through it. Like, why do you look at it like that? Like, can I show you how to look at it a different way? And so he kind of frames things because of the RAS in our brain. You know, we need to look at people like they're opportunities. Like these are great ways for us to engage with people instead of looking at like the downside or the baggage or, oh, you know, they might say no. Well, yeah, it's okay if they say no. You know, we'll invite somebody else because their no might be a yes at some point down the road. So, you know, it's really interesting to hear Andre and Pam, their takeaways, because like each of us at that meeting last week, and we got different takeaways. I was texting with Carolyn Whiteman this morning. She's got all kinds of things going on. Her nephew was there. One of the second generation people in her downline was there. They're both, you know, like really fired up to get going, and they're inviting people. They have three-way calls going. She was going to join us today, but she's got a call at noon because there's so much action going on. And so, you know, action is a great thing in this business. And, you know, our next segment, we're going to talk about action. So I'm going to mute everybody and share the screen. Okay, so let me share this. Okay, so we are going to move to the second part of this and go for another 20 minutes, and then we'll have Q&A. So let's see here. Okay, so Richard talks a lot about the Shaklee story, and he talked a lot about this in the 90-day run to momentum, and we spent time on it again. Your story is really impactful for people, and it's very important to write out your story, rehearse it, videotape yourself. I even bought this little tripod here, and I bought this remote control that allows me to do it remote control so that I can tell. And I've been rehearsing it and telling it and rehearsing it and telling it. And I've been doing it over and over again because one thing with Richard, and I volunteered for one of his weekly meetings in the 90-day run. Richard is very honest and he's candid, and he'll light you up. I mean, he's not afraid to hurt your feelings, but it's all in an effort to make you better. And so, I recorded my first story and it was horrible, just terrible. I had to, do it several times and remakes. And, once you do it so many times and rehearse, every word matters because you only have 2 minutes to tell your story. Now, he says you might have a 5-minute version, you might have a 1-minute version, but it's 2 minutes is the sweet spot. And it's probably the single most important recruiting tool you have because people are foreign to network marketing. It's not the norm. Some people are aware of it, but a lot of people aren't. And, he did this demonstration out on the streets of some city, I don't know, Salt Lake City maybe. He was super MLM, man, and he asked a bunch of just random strangers walking by what network marketing is. And they were like, oh, that's Starbucks. That's the Gap, whatever these examples were, but nothing was on target. Most people don't know what network marketing is. So we have to tell our story and how the products that we used solved something in our life without getting too detailed. They don't want to know, any diseases that you have, but they wanted to know the story. Like, we were a young family with sick kids and everybody was missing school. And when Edith Kufis introduced Ali Palmer and Shackley, all of a sudden our lives improved. Like, we got healthier. And that made a real difference in our lives. My mom was an overworked, overtired nurse leaving at 5 a.m. to drive to the inner city to be a nurse. And like, we missed school all the time. And all of a sudden, when Shackley products were introduced to our life, the vitamins and the protein shakes, they really made a profound impact on our family. And then you get into the opportunity side of it. And that's the real profound impact that, Shackley made in our lives was it created wealth for our family. It taught us how to be entrepreneurs. I became an entrepreneur in a different industry, but it helped me like growing up with Shackley because I saw firsthand. And I think that's the benefit. A lot of us in this group, we get to share kind of our actions with our kids. My kids have seen it like play out several times just recently where, I was in Macy's buying sport coats for their confirmation, which is this coming Sunday. And the gentleman that was helping us was tremendous. He's like, I want to show you exactly what your kids need. Here's the sport coat you need. It's on sale. It fits the best. It's the best value. Just follow me. He just took control, and I bought it like right away. And afterward, I told him a little bit about the Shackley story and about the book that I'm studying, the 90-day run, the 4-year career book. And this guy had a curiosity, a spark in his eye. Like he just seemed like a guy that was, the kind of guy you'd want to invite into your business. And he's from Lebanon, but he's an immigrant and he's living here, but he's a real fun guy. And I could tell. And so I gave him, the 2-minute story. He wanted the book. He's reading it. And my 2 sons looked at me and they're like, Dad, that was pretty easy. You just gave the Shackley pitch to that guy, didn't you? I said, yeah, that's all it really takes, believe it or not. It's just sharing the opportunity. Nothing more, nothing less. So here are some fun pictures. You can see some of these, folks. The bottom right corner, Bob Hoker was a guy I heard give the Shackley sales plan numerous times. And, this picture right here in the center, these people are our family. All the Shackley meetings we went to over the years. I mean, my mom and dad just thought the world of everybody in this picture. And they are our dearest friends. They were my parents' dearest friends for their whole life. And, Shackley meant everything to them. And how do you like the curls in this picture? Look at Phyllis and Gary. That hair was just really incredible. So I figured I'd share that picture. So the 2-minute story is your authentic word of mouth tool. This is really, in Richard's opinion, it's the key. You have to have that great 2-minute story to share with people on a moment's notice, because you might meet somebody in a department store or an Uber driver like Pam met. I take Uber all the time. Everywhere I travel in the world has Uber. I meet these guys all the time. They're all entrepreneurs, chiropractors, fitness people, gym owners. All these folks are, just really tremendous places to go with your recruiting. The 7 steps to a powerful story: be you, be authentic, just be yourself, keep it short and on point. What's the problem to be solved? And how did the Shackley product solve your problem? And what is your life like now? And the opportunity of Shackley. And so, this is a picture of my mom and dad on their first trip to San Francisco. And it was a Polaroid camera because it has the date on the side, December of 73. So I just look at the look in their eyes and how excited they were when they're starting out. And that's how excited people are when they get an opportunity to build something of their dreams. It's pretty profound. And we cannot underestimate how powerful people's dreams are. And when we talk to people, instead of just blurting out, it's real easy to do. I do this way too often. I make the mistake of doing it, but instead of just blurting out, it's Shackley and it's great and you should try it, because that's all about us. What we really need to do is find out what their dreams are. What do they want to do in life? Do they want to travel the world? Do they want to have freedom from corporate America? Like, do you know the level of anxiety and pressure my former industry, like the companies put on people to hit their numbers, their quotas? Like, if you didn't hit your quotas, you were put on probation. It was so intense, the pressure, that people would start dreading the work week on Sunday morning. Like, they could only enjoy Saturday, because by Sunday, the pressure would start to build. And by Sunday night, like, people were a mess and they could barely wake up on Monday morning. And that's the type of pressure that corporate America puts on people. And not everybody, but you will find folks that are in those environments that they're looking for something different, or maybe they're looking for just a retirement income of $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month or $5,000 a month. Those are different visions. They're different goals and dreams people have. And it's very specific to them. Maybe they want to pay off student debt. Maybe they want to pay off their children's student debt. Maybe they want to save for their kids. So it's all these different and we only know what their dreams are if we ask them. It's the only way we find out. And if you really want to step up your success level of recruiting, according to Richard, is you have to find out what people's dreams are, what's in their heart. If you find out what's in their heart, and we had a couple of interesting role plays, Andre from Canada and the villa in Anguilla. Sometime you'll have to ask us the story about that, because, he needed to find out what his dreams were before he could kind of, uncover some of his, hidden demons that were holding him back. And so, we talk about the 1 invite per day and how important that is, because, Richard's big on keeping it simple. And I am too, because, when we sold in medical sales, every surgeon just wanted something simple. It couldn't be complicated. Otherwise, they wouldn't try your new device. It had to be simple and easy to use. It's no different here. Our people want this to be simple. And in Eric Worre's book, GoPro, like his line that I liked is, in network marketing, it does not matter what works. It only matters what duplicates. It has to be easy to duplicate. And if we make it easy to duplicate, then it'll be easy to train our people and make them, realize how easy it is to duplicate, and so on and so forth. And so his simple line of his invite is, just take a look at the whole opportunity, including the products. And in order to count as an invite, you must get a yes, no, or maybe. And it's really important to keep track of it on the stat tracker. He's got an Excel spreadsheet. You can keep track of it, because that's the key for follow-ups. And so, and it's key for ratios, success ratios. And, how many have you invited, to how many you've presented to how many you've enrolled. And it's helpful to have those statistics. But just take a look at the whole opportunity, including the products. Each word is very important, and each word has very important meaning. And the reason why one invite per day is so impactful is because he's been doing this for 43 years. He knows the people who are building a business that have been successful, and he's done all these interviews on the heroes calls, and they all did it a certain way. They had a very consistent way of recruiting, and Richard likes to say one invite per day. And that's the important way to keep up your momentum so that you're building. And, he has a picture of the airplane taking off in his book, The 4-Year Career. And the one invite a day is really your runway, and it gets you the speed. Because if you do that for 2 years, you will create the kind of momentum that it takes to building a group of 50 to 100 people. And he's done so many heroes calls with people that have done this, and it's no guarantee, but if you can just do the penny a day, for 30 days in a row, you build millions. But if you only do it every other day, you only have $163. And so, those are all quotes from his book. And, what caught my attention when I started to listen to Richard was he had some thoughts, and then we'll go to Q&A in a second. What caught my attention was his ideas of compounding growth. And, I've always been a follower of Warren Buffett and compound interest and how important that is. Warren Buffett just calls it, the eighth wonder of the world, and Einstein said it. That is what makes this business so important. You can compound your growth and then have geometric progression. So you find 4 people, they find 4, 16 turns into 64, turns into 256, turns into 1,024. And, when Richard started talking about asset income and, geometric progression, it all really clicked with me. That made sense as a business person. And so, when we start to really dive into what he's teaching, it all makes a lot of sense. And so what I would suggest, my call to action, is to read the book and then to, reach out to one of us that were there if you want, or sign up for the next Richard Brooke meeting. He might just have another one. We thought this was one and done, but there might be another one down the road. And I look at it as an investment. As a business person, you get, at least 30% off your tax write-off. So, if it's $300 or $379, whatever it was, it's more like, $300 after taxes as a write-off. It's probably the best investment you can ever make, because if you put that same amount of money into a mutual fund and made 10% on it, it might be, I don't know, $300, or if it's $1,000 investment, it'd be $1,100 after a year with 10% growth. But in this investment, if you built an asset that was bringing in $5,000 a month in income times 200, it might be worth $1 million. And that would be a pretty incredible return on your investment, more like 1,000% instead of 10%. So those are some of my thoughts. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it back up to Q&A. So I'm going to unmute everybody.
He's unmuting.
Okay, everybody's unmuted now. I would just ask you, when you're not asking a question, just go to the bottom left corner of your screen and just mute your microphone, just so there's not a lot of background noise. Any questions on any of the second half of that, the story, the one invite per day, some of Richard's thoughts on the secret formula, which we didn't really get into today, but I emailed that to you, and kind of what that formula looks like, and the reason why one invite a day is his sweet spot. Any thoughts? Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that because, when we start inviting one a day, he talks about how long would that take? If you could just invite one person a day, how long do you think that would take? And, I thought, well, maybe, half hour, maybe give or take. But as you say, Shirley, you kind of have to connect with people too, because, if you just randomly text people or email or LinkedIn Messenger or Facebook Messenger, it might not be very authentic. And so when we get into being authentic, that's what attracts people. It really has to do with connections like you're talking about. I totally agree with that. And, being thoughtful on how we connect with people and invite them because, if it's just all about us, because I want to make more money, then, people are not really attracted to that, are they? So I agree with you. I like your thought there.
Can I tell you something, Scott? Because there was something that on one of your slides that really spoke to me about these invites. I think it was a couple of slides back, about how motivated you have to be to do this. And I will tell you, I mean, I think of myself as a very motivated person, but when I started, I realized my vision has to be a success every day. And I have to set the vision the day, every day. Like today, I haven't done. So I started like on my birthday, I've done 27, 28 invitations in the month of November. I've sent out 26 books. I've got 3 not new business partners, but business partners that I'm coaching. A couple of them were from before and one brand new person, and done several presentations. But in this whole month, the motivation that it required to do it was a step up from anything I've done in a very, very long time. I had to focus every day on a new vision of what my success was going to be that day in order to do this. And so like today, I haven't done my invite yet. I made one call, but I've still got to do it. So it's almost like I remember Carolyn Sparger talking about Dr. Shackley saying, if you don't call, talk about Shackley that day, and she would go to the phone book. That's how I feel sometimes by the end of the day. But it is really a motivator to set that commitment that I don't want that one penny. And I've had to, some days wasn't able to do it, like during Thanksgiving, and I don't know what's going to happen during Christmas. But anyway, I just wanted to offer that up about the motivation, because that slide you had on there was very specific about how much energy and motivation it does take. Not as much time as you'd think, but the motivation.
Yeah, and I think the blessing and the curse of this business is we can do as much or as little as we want.
Yeah.
And it's all up to us. And it's a blessing. It's what makes it fun, right? But it's also a curse because the only person we're accountable to is ourselves. Like nobody can take our job away. And so self-motivation really becomes the key to the whole business. And that's what Richard talks about is it's so profound because that is the key to the whole business. Because, if we let it, our lives get really busy and, we all do it. We all find a million things to do. But if we're not focused on the job or on inviting one per day, you can get sidetracked so easy. And it's so true that, when he talks about self-motivation, and I think, that's why vision is so important, because it's just so easy to say, well, if I didn't do it today, I'll just do 2 tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, I'll do 3 the next day. I'll do 4 the next day, or I'll do 10 next week. And so it really is easy. And it all comes down to self-motivation. It is interesting.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Scott?
Yeah. Hi,
Okay,
Phyllis.
Scott, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all this information. It's just been great. And I appreciate that you have made this available so we can share it with our teams who couldn't be on here. That is just awesome. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just noticed the record button. Let's hope it's still recording. it doesn't look
I
like
hope so.
it doesn't look like it did. So, if we have to just do it again, we will. But I pressed record, but in any event, we'll figure that out later.
Oh, good.
Anybody else?
I've got what happens when you leave? It will have you do the recording. It will tell you what to do. I think it's still recording.
It will. Okay, good.
All right. Scott, this is Annette. Thank you for doing this Zoom call. I just want to share, I don't know if I'm the only one, but the terror of being tongue-tied, when you want to say something, but you don't want to say something. So these courses sound good. And I've done the books and I've done the GoPro, but it's still, sometimes it is a terror of being tongue-tied. And finding the things to say. Do you have any suggestions there?
Well, Annette, when I was in medical sales, I used to have a couple go-to lines. I'd ask a doctor, do you prefer to see new technology over lunch in your office or in the operating room between surgeries? And I practiced that line so many times, hundreds of times, so that when I was in a conversation with a surgeon, it would just come off my tongue as just so conversational, just so matter of fact. And I would teach all my reps to do it. And pretty soon, we all just asked the same question. Richard's question, just take a look at the whole opportunity, including the products. And if you write that line down and just say it 100 times,
okay,
it'll just be so conversational, and it won't even seem like you're inviting. It'll just be part of a regular conversation. And you guys probably do this already, because I know a lot of people on this call are really good recruiters, and so many of you just do this naturally. But for those of us who, don't do it naturally, and because I think it's half art, half science. I think, marketing and sales, I think it's half art, half science. And, we did a lot of seminars in medical sales regarding these topics. And this was often brought up. It's an art in how you deliver it, but it's kind of a science in the process of marketing things to people, because they don't know what Shackley is. They don't know what network marketing is. And so part of the science is the one invite per day, and just take a look at the whole opportunity, including the products. And then the art comes in, and how do you deliver that? How do you connect with people?
Right.
And, I think when you put it all together, it just makes it easier to have those go-to, I call them go-to lines. You can call them whatever you want. Richard has his one invite per day, and that's his invite. That's how he words it. But however you do it, however you massage that process is kind of the art in delivering it.
Scott, I'd also like to add that one of the things I learned, Annette, is this whole new skill set of asking people to take a look at a book versus Shackley sometimes takes the fear away, and it was all new to me because I was used to the opportunity in Shackley. But sometimes with some people, it's a real big fit because you're just asking them to take a look at a book. And so his languaging around that is just brilliant. And I just copied it verbatim and learned it. If I could show, not if I could show you why. No, I'm not cancel Claire. The wording is, I'm reading a book or I'm studying a process that shows people how they can do this in 4 years. If that were true, would you like to take a look at the book? And I've had this incredible success just saying those 2 sentences. So I think Scott's right. It's just getting those sentences that may be unfamiliar to us and practicing them and seeing how it lands, and then we learn as we go.
That's a great idea, and I'm so glad you said that, Pam, because the book is what convinces people that it's worth it. Because if we just say, just take a look at the whole opportunity, including the products, I get a lot of no's from that. But when you say I'm reading and studying a book, and you just take a look, and let me know what you think, and we'll talk about it. Sometimes it is less of a thing. It's less intimidating. If you'd say just take a look at the opportunity, sometimes people think, well, I'm pretty big. I've got a career. I have an opportunity. And I also think that just take a look at the 7-day cleanse. That actually was kind of an easy way to introduce people to Shackley too. Just take a look at the 7-day cleanse, which I'm doing next week. And do you want to feel better? It's guaranteed to make you feel better. And what better time to do it than right now before the holidays? And so I got some people to do that. And gosh, that might attract people because, who doesn't want to lose 5 to 10 pounds and feel better? That's kind of a home run. And it's guaranteed. If it doesn't work, we'll give you your money back. That's a great point. Sure, that was Shirley, right? Yeah, Shirley, that's a great point because what resonates with me is different than what resonates with my wife. And when spouses do the business together, what motivated my mom was far different than what motivated my dad. My mom liked the nutrition products. My dad liked the opportunity. My mom wanted a healthy family so her kids wouldn't miss school. My dad thought it might be a way to create wealth for our family. So, when we're introducing these concepts, different things resonate with different people. And that's why, it's so important to ask the questions and dig down deep and find out, like, what are their motivations? We did a lot of personality profiling in medical sales, and we'd find out the profile. There were 4 personality profile types of every surgeon. One was a thinker. One was an achiever. He was more interested in his ego and his stature in the society or the city and, being famous. And then, the neurosurgeons tended to be thinkers. They were interested in clinical studies and the data and they would like the landmark study and the telomere study. And then there were relators. A lot of my customers, a lot of the nurses were relators. They were like my mom. They wanted to feel like the empathy and, your emotions. And, they were more interested in how you feel. And then there were, the 4th personality type was the person that was like a flashy dresser, had fancy clothes, wanted to show you his expensive cars. And, he or she was kind of in that personality. So we would structure our presentations to their personality type. And I think some of that is, involved here too. We have to think about who the people are we're talking to. Some of our prospects might be interested in different things. Just different things motivate different people. Anybody else? So we're at the 1 hour mark. So I don't want to take up any more time. So I am just going to end it here unless there's, 1 or 2 last questions. And then hopefully this recorded and I'll pass it on. Either, we'll create a Facebook group or we'll figure out some way to pass this video on to everybody if you want to share it.
Thanks so much, Scott. This was really great and really appreciate you hosting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthea.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Chuck.